Hello, I'm Daniel Cawrey, a contributor to CoinDesk since 2013 and co-author of the book Mastering Blockchain.
I'm Daniel Cawrey, a contributor to CoinDesk since 2013 and co-author of the book Mastering Blockchain.
Today we have a very special event, starting with a message from the founder and CEO of our publisher, Tim O'Reilly. After that, a short session on cryptocurrency meetups with Adam B. Levine, where the genesis of this book began. Then a talk about the book with Age of Cryptocurrency co-author and CoinDesk Chief Content Officer Michael Casey, Lorne, and myself, followed by a special announcement and an after party in virtual reality. So without further ado, I'm very proud to present this message from Tim O'Reilly.
I'm excited to welcome you to tonight's virtual book launch for Mastering Blockchain by Lorne, Lantz, and Daniel Cawrey. Lorne and Daniel invited me here not because I have anything special to say about blockchain or cryptocurrency, other than read their book, but because I can put this crypto moment into a broader historical context. So, a few quick thoughts. Like a lot of you, I think we may be on the cusp of a phase change in finance and many other industries because of blockchain. PayPal enabling cryptocurrency for their users, companies like Square using Bitcoin as a store of value, and the progression of Ethereum as a software platform with real finance-like applications are all evidence that we're reaching a tipping point for blockchain adoption. In that regard, I want to tell you a story from Ernest Hemingway. In his novel, The Sun Also Rises, his narrator asks another character, "Mike, how did you go bankrupt?" And Mike replies, "Two ways. First gradually, then suddenly." I like it so much because that's how technological and business change seems to happen as well. First gradually, and then suddenly. But that's not quite right. It's not so much that the change happens suddenly. The change happens slowly often, but it's invisible, it's inexorable. It's the waking up that's sudden. And of course, blockchain's been around now for well over a decade. The first ideas even long before that. So it's easy to think that the quotation from Hemingway is a warning to the incumbents who are about to be disrupted. But Jeff Bezos once told me, if change happens slowly, it favors the incumbents. If it happens fast, it favors the upstarts. And of course, you guys go, yeah, that's good. This is like, bang, we're in this moment where we're going to just take over. But in my experience, upstarts are just as likely to miss the full significance and shape of the changes that we unleash. The reason is that it's so easy to frame the future in terms of the present. When my company created GNN, the first commercial website in early 1993, we saw it as a cross between an online magazine and an online catalog. We were thinking terms that we were familiar with. And we saw commercial websites as a replacement for brochures that at that time companies sent out through the mail when people called them or wrote to them to ask for more information about their products. But we didn't imagine the scale the web would reach. We didn't imagine Google and its advertising-driven business model becoming so central to the economy. We didn't imagine mobile applications. We didn't imagine just how dominant e-commerce would become, or how YouTube, Facebook, and algorithmically amplified deception would affect politics and everything about the world we know. Similarly, when free software advocates pitted Linux against Microsoft, they thought that the big question was which operating system people would use on their desktops. They thought that free software would end existing industry power structures. And they didn't imagine all the ways that cloud services would make data rather than software APIs the new source of monopoly and lock-in. So when you imagine the future of blockchain-based technologies, don't just imagine how they'll disrupt today's financial institutions and systems of record. Keep imagining new uses, new second-order opportunities, as well as new threats to the freedom that you imagine is somehow intrinsic to the technology. It isn't. Every technology can be bent to good or ill. Now, it's very hard to imagine the future and to get it right. Even the most prescient miss crucial details on which the opportunity hinges or some threat looms. The best we can do is to prepare, to learn constantly, and to keep our eyes and our minds open. I'm excited to read Lorne and Daniel's book, and I hope you are too. You can, of course, buy the standalone book, but you can also find it on the O'Reilly.com online learning platform, which gives you subscription access, not just to their book, but to tens of thousands of other technology books, videos, live training, and a lot more. I'm particularly excited about the new Answers feature, which is a machine learning powered search engine that lets you ask questions in plain language and get taken right to the relevant paragraph in any of these books. Check it out if you haven't already. But the most important way we all learn is from each other. The fact that you're here means that you're curious and that you're part of a learning community, building the future together. I can't resist leaving you with another quotation. This one from Alan Kay. He said, "It's easier to invent the future than it is to predict it." It may be one of you who invents that part of the blockchain future that the rest of us can't yet imagine or predict. I look forward to being surprised. Thanks for your idealism and for your creativity. Have a great evening.
Hey, this is Daniel. I'm here to talk about the importance of crypto meetups. So I started going to the Bitcoin and Ethereum meetups in Silicon Valley about 6 years ago. So it was around 2013, 2014. It was where I first met Lorne, who is the co-author of my book, Mastering Blockchain. And I think we all need to recognize how important these meetups are, particularly in this environment that we're in where we actually can't personally connect. I mean, the Bitcoin meetup, the Silicon Valley Bitcoin meetup alone has gone from a few hundred people in 2014 to thousands of members. And that just shows the interest that people have in networking and connecting with this community. And I think that that's really important today. And I think having active meetups and active social connections in this world that almost feels disconnected right now is hugely important. And so many great things come out of these crypto meetups. I'm just a huge advocate for them. I have so many friends that I have met out of these meetups, and I just want these communities to continue and be active and promote entrepreneurialism and promote building things, which is what Lorne and I have done with Mastering Blockchain, our new book that's coming out from O'Reilly Media. And I think other people could say the same thing about their collaborations and their successes that have come from these crypto meetups.
Hey guys, Lorne here. Over the years, crypto meetups have been an excellent resource for me. No matter what city I travel to around the world, there's always a crypto meetup. Even in a small city like Winnipeg of 800,000 people. And right away you drop in that new city, you're brand new there, you don't know anybody. But if you go to the meetup, it's your people. You right away you have something in common to talk about. You can share knowledge with them, they teach you stuff. And the other great thing that has been so useful about these meetups over the years is it lets you see behind the press release. You get to meet these people, the CEOs, the people that are actually building, the people that are actually doing the things. You get to meet and talk directly with the people who are building our industry, all the different technologies, all the different exchanges. It's also a great place if you're looking for a new job to get tons of job offers. Because these are great resources for where people running crypto companies look for common-minded people to hire. So I can't wait for this pandemic to be over and I can start seeing my people all over again in person at these meetups.
Hi, Jeff here. I'd like to share my story about why crypto meetups matter. When I think about these various meetups and the communities that they represent, it's always good to unpack that word. It's a very complex one, community. And so I would say it's equal parts insanity, craziness, whimsicalness, and 100% passion, 100% intelligence. And I'm always amazed at the amazing conversations and dialogue and discussions that emerge especially when we don't all agree and have different ideas and different philosophies. And so it makes for a much richer life and experience. I also think about the amazing people that I've seen that I would never probably have gotten to know through these meetups. And I can't even begin to quantifiably measure how much that has contributed to my being. And so I'm always humbled and always amazed. And I just want to thank everyone for being a part of this, and know that I think about this quite a bit, and I'm always humbled by it. So thank you all.
Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Cawrey. I'm co-author of the book Mastering Blockchain. And today we have a very special panel that is about to start. It is about crypto meetups. I first met my co-author, Lorne Lantz, at a crypto meetup. And I think it's very important in these times of distance that we all have a chance to meet up. And that's what these meetups have been. And it has been a different experience in 2020, obviously. So I'm happy to welcome in our panelists. Our panelists should be joining us shortly. I will discuss a little bit about, okay, here they come. So we have Jeff Flowers, from the Silicon Valley Ethereum meetup. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, how's everyone?
And then we have Scott Robinson, who was a part and still, I believe, is participating in the Silicon Valley Bitcoin meetup. How you doing?
Doing well, thanks for having me.
And then Sean Douglas from Amber Data, who I think has a lot of experience coming to meetups. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Good. So, Scott, I'm going to start with you. Could you talk a little bit about the history of the Silicon Valley Bitcoin meetup?
Yeah, it was such an awesome experience for me. It started really as an attendee. Roger Ver, of course, aka Bitcoin Jesus, was the original founder of the Silicon Valley Bitcoin meetup. And back in 2011, there were really only 15 or 20 folks that would show up to this. And it was pretty intermittent. 2012, it began to center around things like conferences when that first May conference occurred. I think from that point on, people began to gather. And so my first real recollection of the meetup was actually at Blue Ocean Sushi in Sunnyvale. And Roger had gathered us there, and folks like Andreas Antonopoulos and Charlie Lee, and of course, Jeff and others were all gathering. And, it was clear there was an appetite for people to meet and talk about this and build things. But because there was a lack of consistency, it was kind of hard to get the community to grow. And so Roger would leave around, I think, the summer of 2013, and he offered up to the group of us that had been going. And my wife at the time was working at Plug and Play, and there was extra event space. So we took the opportunity, and I said I would love to host this every Tuesday night. And it's really fitting for the opening of this to touch on this gradually then suddenly, because I remember the first meetup I hosted, September 3rd, 2013, maybe 30 people showed up. The group itself had less than 175 people. And then, not even 6 months later, I'd like to say we had hundreds of people showing up. And of course, the price would rise. And I'm not attributing this to me in any way. I'm just saying it was just a very interesting time to be the host and watch all of these folks be introduced to this new technology. And, it was really, really interesting to watch the community embrace, this premise of entrepreneurship and building around this new technology that is now accessible and valuable and important. So yeah, the early days were very, You could tell when the meetup was. The security guards at Plug and Play would say, "Oh, it's Tuesday night," because there was a select crew that would come through in the very early days. We'd have pizza and so forth, but I think it became a lot more democratized in the sense people were very much more interested as the years went on, and it was just such an honor to be a part of that and to participate in the education and then just this community building opportunity in this fantastic industry and technology.
So Jeff, I want to go to you about the Ethereum meetups. I remember going to one Ethereum meetup a really long time ago at BitTorrent. I don't think you were there at that one, but also there was a lot of meetups at Hacker Dojo. Maybe if you could fill in folks about the Ethereum meetup and how that all came together.
Well, much like Scott, the Ethereum meetup, I came in as a participant. Chris Peel had started this, and it was really actually before Ethereum had started, quite frankly. And it was really around smart contracts and the idea. We were talking about early pre-Ethereum technologies like Codius, and I was just so enthralled by the passion that everyone in the space exudes. And so, it really made me quite interested to be, more engaged, to know more about this space and to talk to and learn more about these folks. So very much like Scott, it was just the sense of community, the sense of, camaraderie, learning together. And like everyone has said, or as Scott said, funny enough, as the technology grew and the price grew, the groups would get larger. But always, it's really quite interesting, the folks that show up, the ideas that they bring, and the energy that they contribute. And so I think that building a decentralized future has really struck a nerve for a lot of people that they really want to see this realized. And so I really can't wait to see where this all takes us. I think it's going to take us somewhere quite interesting. And so I can't wait to see that.
Sean, I love the background there. I love the art. Do you have anything that you'd like to add? Maybe a story about the meetups, like a good experience that you had, something that you built off of going to the meetups, whatever you want to talk about.
Absolutely. So first, I'm super stoked to be here, and I can't believe it's been this long. So I was at those original meetups with Scott way back in the day. I actually used to work for EMC Ventures, and I was an active investing venture capitalist pre all this, was mining Litecoin and Bitcoin in the Plug and Play Tech Center when those meetups started. And then later on, I met Chris Peel at the Ethereum meetup, and then Jeff, and and had participated in a whole bunch of Ethereum meetups, and actually had quit my job in 2017 to go build something around Ethereum, and was inspired actually by participating in just the groundswell of activity happening around, specifically around the Ethereum community and the Ethereum meetups there. And I remember participating in one event. It was just packed. It was standing room only. Jeff was there. I think a guy named Igor was there. I think he was with POA Networks, and thinking like, wow, this is really taking off. I'm going to go start a business in this space. And fast forward, my good 3.5 years later, we started Amber Data. We were venture backed by HWVP. We are now a blockchain and digital assets data infrastructure company. We actually have as customers some of the largest financial institutions on the planet, and they're getting on-chain activity, they're getting spot market activity, derivatives activity, they're building businesses on it. It's just amazing to have participated, going all the way back to early plug and play days through Ethereum meetups, and just seeing everybody kind of expand and be successful. So I'm super happy to be here, and thank you. This is amazing.
Jeff, did you have a story that you wanted to tell? And also, I think you may be the first person to have a print copy of our book. Yeah. How did you get that?
Well, I like to, as people will know who know me will tell you, I like to collect stuff. So So when I was like first in line to get the book, so I was like, let's get that in right away. And it's just one of those things. I just like to collect stuff and play with cool stuff, and that's definitely a cool book. And I highly recommend everybody. This is a book you get, for people that aren't technical but want to be technical and want to understand the technology, but they don't want to, open up the command line and start typing away. Perhaps they want to understand the technology in an intelligent manner. But there are a lot of stories. The story I have is how I got really involved big time with the Ethereum space and the Ethereum meetup. And it was basically, I forget, it was 2015, and I had read or I'd seen on Reddit that day something about this event called Blockchain University, and I thought, oh, let's just, this might be fun. Let's go. And it was at night, and my partner and I were driving down 280, and there was a lot of traffic, and I was hungry, so I got hangry, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. Let's just turn around. Let's go home. I don't want to drive that far, down to Mountain View. And Yvonne, my now wife, she was like, let's just go. It'll be fun. And I said, I don't even know what's going on with this. This is questionable. I like the meetups, but this was, it was very limited. As Scott mentioned, it was very small and very limited. They were, not, well, whatever. Anyways, we got there, and I was flabbergasted because seeing all these people that shared my passion and interest, and just talking to people, and it was sort of like we all started discovering one another, that there were other people out there like us, and just got the conversation started. And that's where I met Chris, and started talking about and learning more about this new technology that was up and coming that would later emerge as Ethereum and whatnot. So I really think it's always good to put yourself out there, even if you're hungry and tired. Just go there, see what happens. You get to meet some really interesting people and really great ideas.
Scott, could you talk a little bit maybe about some of the projects that, or like maybe early stage companies that maybe launched out of Silicon Valley Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just kind of combing through the prior speakers we had, and as part of the plug and play Bitcoin Accelerator, the initial class included Purse, 37 Coins, Crypto Card through a guy named Josh, and there was another company called Holy Transaction that had a multi-currency wallet. And so, yeah, these folks were able to go and pitch to a community of 30 or 40 people that, back in those early pitching days, pitching a crypto company was very tough. So any venue where you could practice, particularly with ears that understood or wanted to understand what you were doing, it was really important. I think also that's where a lot of the talent was. So we featured people like, Vinny back when he was with Gift, Vinny Lingham prior to starting Civic. I remember early days of folks like Andreas Antonopoulos walking around with a laminated $20 bill stack, asking who could find the fake $20 bill to, evidence the value prop of you can't fake crypto, you can't fake Bitcoin. There were just so many different people that walked through there too. I think we had Professor Susan Athey back in the day. We also eventually would have like a job fair that was in conjunction with that meetup, and Balaji from 21.co at the time kind of gave a talk, and there were 30 or so different companies through our friends at Quinality and Dan that were able to find jobs, find places to work. So I think not only was this a venue for startups like through the accelerator that we worked with, but it was also a place for which we worked with competing accelerators or otherwise. So we held events at 500 startups or up with Boost in San Mateo. And it was really about building, and it wasn't about necessarily competing. So I think, there's a number of very successful companies that I remember Jacob Hansen from Cryptocurrencies, which is now a very well-funded company. I remember, there's probably too many to name, definitely.
Scott,
yeah, Sean,
and of course,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I met Vitalik at the Plug and Play at one of your meetups when they were coming out with Ethereum early on. It was at your meetup that I met them and really got plugged into that whole thing, which led me to go to the other Ethereum meetups.
Right, and we had a lot of really fun folks. Like I remember Joel Dietz came pitching a company called Swarm, or it was maybe Green Wallet, a project that he was working on. We had, I remember actually the first Ethereum meetup when Chris Peel ran it, had it right next to us, and so that was an interesting time for folks that were trying to understand, all this explosion of new technology, terminology, and opportunity.
Yeah, I remember the first time I had ever heard of multi-sig, I believe, was presented to me at the Silicon Valley Bitcoin meetup. The name of the gentleman escapes me now. He went on to run a fund or something of that nature.
It might have been Mike Belshi from BitGo.
It was before Mike Belshi even was talking about the idea, actually.
Okay.
But I know that Mike had he had some participation with Ben Davenport used to go to the meetups.
That's right.
I mean, I was covering Bitcoin startups before that was really like a thing for a journalist to do, and to be able to go to those meetups, I got a lot of ideas out of that. We are running out of time, but I do want to let each of you very quickly sign off if you have anything to add. Sean, I'll start with you because you keep going last, so I got to let you go first.
I don't know. I'm super happy to have been involved in the community. Thank you, everybody. This has been amazing. Come if you want to contact me, it's Sean, SHAWN at amberdata.io.
Jeff?
I'll go next. Yeah. So I just want to thank again everybody for coming, and we're going to have a lot of fun later on. And I'm going to shill just a little bit. So we've got another meetup this weekend, and please check that out. It's going to be looking at EIP 1559, and we've got Vitalik coming in to do Q&A. So thank you again, all.
Sounds exciting. Scott?
I'll just close. There's a lot of people that have organized the meetup over the years. So currently George Burke, a colleague of ours that's been very helpful. And, I think if there's one thing that's really stood out, the crypto opportunity is something that's global in nature. And it's a community that doesn't matter where you are regionally. And we were often limited through the meetups from a region perspective. But if there's ever an opportunity to kind of expedite this remote community and learning in that, in such a way, I think now is kind of case in point. So anyway, it's been quite a ride for me, and I'm thankful to all the folks that have participated. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you all for being here and talking about meetups. We are going to switch to Michael Casey, who is the co-author of Age of Cryptocurrency, Truth Machine with Paul Vigna. He's CoinDesk's Chief Content Officer. He is going to talk to us about mastering blockchain. Lorne Lantz, my co-author, will be joining us in a moment. I'm looking forward to having them jump in. It looks like Michael is in, and Lorne has also joined. Michael, welcome.
Thanks, Dan. Pleasure to be here. And Lorne, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, great to be here too. Listening into all those meetup stories was so reminiscent. So nice.
Yeah. So how are we doing this, Dan? Are you do you want me to just fire away and start getting some questions going with you guys? Or is this
that would be great.
Playing a pretty informal approach here, which is right today, and with Lorne sort of still waking up, it seems, in Manila time right now. So we'll ease him into it. But yeah, look, a pleasure to be here with you guys for a whole lot of reasons. One of which is I feel your pain. I have written a couple of books and have been through this process. So I know the challenge, but I know how wonderful it is when you get to the end of it, and how exciting it is that you're out and about. So the launch is the best day of the lot, and I'm thrilled for you. It's a great book. I think it's going to be a really important resource. I understand. Is that right, Dan? It is already sort of being placed in the syllabus at at least one university.
Oh yes. So Dr. Jimmy Lentz from Duke University, who runs a fintech program in the engineering school, is going to be using the book for his Coursera program starting in 2021. And the book is designed as a textbook and reference manual. I think what's interesting is that people don't have to just read through it. There's a really compelling table of contents to the book, and also everything is indexed in the back. So if you want to look up something about stable coins, or if you want to look up something about Uniswap, it's really like a manual for people to get foundational knowledge on cryptocurrencies and blockchain.
Yeah, it's really well organized. I mean, that's the impression I've certainly got from flicking through it. Like, you know, it takes you through very systematically, which I think is, it's a. I think it was Jeff who was describing it. You know, it's a book that, you know, it doesn't come straight at you with this high level of understanding, but it takes you systematically through to really get to the point where you can get a really good grasp of what this is all about. So I think it's a great accomplishment. Congratulations to you both. You know, Daniel, just quickly, I just have to put this in context, you know, because, you know, you were the first journalist. When I first got into it, I was at the Wall Street Journal. You were writing for CoinDesk back then. How the circle has turned. You're now working, and we're both at CoinDesk. But you know, hearing you talk to people like Scott, who, you know, I got to meet myself, presented my book at his meetup. Actually, twice I presented books at his meetups. All of that began, you know, meeting you in those early days, North American Bitcoin conference in Miami. You know, quite a scene, and I remember you were very much of a useful kind of guide and mentor, because this was a crazy Wild West kind of world, and I didn't make any sense to me, and you were able to give me a sense of the right level of scrutiny and you know, enthusiasm measured with skepticism. And I think that you've carried that through your journalism, which is great, and it helped me to appreciate where it was. So first I want to just put that on the table, because that's hearing all this reminiscence going on helped that. But why don't you guys just walk me through, you know, what brought you to this point? Because both of you have been in this space for quite a while. And there's been a number of books written about this. I wrote a couple of myself. And you know, what made you feel like, you know, this was the time to sort of put all this knowledge of yours down into another book? And you know, what sort of need did you see yourself serving here? Either one of you can take that and see how it goes.
For me personally, you know, a lot of the inspiration came from like going to house parties, you know, just events or house parties where there's a lot of people who don't know anything about Bitcoin. And, you know, I'd end up spending the entire evening just answering and demystifying all these questions of what Bitcoin really was, you know, because so many people would have these misconceptions and misunderstandings, and it just became this constant pattern over the years of so many people had bought into so much misinformation, especially during the ICO years. You know, in 2017, so many people had been fed like a lot of lies or a lot of misinformation around, you know, you have to buy this token, you have to buy this because of this. And it was just so clear. You talk to people in the market, like people who are not in this industry, and nobody knew what was really going on. And then you sit down and, you know, you Google in like, what is Bitcoin? And it's just overwhelming. You know, there's just so many mixed in with misinformation, real content. And even when we were talking to O'Reilly, it was like they were being fed some misinformation as well. And we're like, we really just have to set the record straight. You know, instead of us going to house parties and just one-on-one telling people, like giving them fact-based information, you know, we should put it all down in a book. And that's sort of a response we've been getting from a lot of people, is it's almost like a Bible, like you guys were saying. It's indexed, it's, you know, and one of the key things we want to get in there is a lot of the beginning of the book has to do with giving people the language, you know, the everyday common language that we use, like, you know, what's a confirmation, what's a block, stuff like that. We want to give people that language as well. So they can come in, from a new industry and come in and right away work in the industry. So
yeah, that's a really good point. That the taxonomy is almost, it can be an exclusionary thing in any industry for that matter, right? It's one of those, the jargon is the thing that, and it's not intentional necessarily, but it does exclude. And so once you get that tool of the language, it invites you in. You sort of start to sort of join the club, if you like, which I think is really, really important. Now, I mean, you did interview a lot of folks for it, right? It's not some, I mean, you can see that there is interviews through there, but it sounds like in some respects you were just translating, a lot of that knowledge that you were acquiring through them into the book. Talk to a little bit about that, if you can, Daniel. I mean, how widely did how widely was this resourced across sources and experts?
Yeah. So my background as a journalist, the first thing that we did once we got approval from O'Reilly, I mean, they really loved the idea when we presented it to them as a manual that was instead of something that was like a narrow pool that was deep, it's a wide pool that's shallow. So the first thing that we did is we started doing interviews. The process, I know from like Lorne's perspective, he's like, we're gonna do all these interviews. Like, how's that all gonna work? But it was really helpful for us to do those to get that perspective that was not just ours. I know, like, I remember the first person that we interviewed was J.R. Willett, who is known as the creator of the ICO with the Omni project that became Mastercoin. Well, no, it was Mastercoin and then became Omni, and then now it's being used with Tether. But we talked to a lot of folks. I'd say we talked to about 24 folks. We really tried to focus on people who had engineering expertise. We really tried to make something that was somewhat technical, but I also wanted it to be accessible. So there isn't like a lot of coding examples in the book, but there's a lot of fundamentals. And those fundamentals will be helpful for people, for years, just to get kind of like ideas, whether you're an entrepreneur, programmer, or you're just starting out. It really, I think it gives like a starting point for people to really get involved in this industry. And I do want to let Lorne probably add to some of those thoughts about what we did in preparation for writing. If you want to add on.
Yeah, just talk about the process from your perspective.
Yeah, it was, in the beginning, because we specifically want to solve the problem of getting rid of this misinformation, and what we noticed was a lot of the content in the past, a lot of it, not all of it, but some of it was biased. Somebody would write a book on, a specific blockchain because they wanted people to buy more of that cryptocurrency. So for us, we want to make it as unbiased and factual as possible. So one part of that was interviewing a lot of people, because of course we're not the only professionals in the industry. There's so many different perspectives. And then the other part was, just doing a ton of research. Like, even though we've been in the industry for 8 years or 9 years, like so many years, there's still so much that we don't know. Like, this industry is so decentralized. And it's also not just, it's geographically as well. So we made sure to interview people that are geographically in different places. We did notice that, certain regions were more focused on certain areas, like, people in New York are more focused on trading. People in like Silicon Valley are more focused on innovating the technology. Singapore is very much like the hub of Asia and sort of an introductory to like, China. So these were a lot of things that we learned about. And it was also helpful that Daniel's in North America and I'm in Asia.
Right.
So that way we were able to, they're different worlds, like the way, what people are focused on, the innovations. So that really helped as well.
I'd like to explore this a bit more, actually, because it's one of my pet passions, and I think that that a lot of the coverage gets very regional, even though ultimately is, as you described, it's a truly international ecosystem, and it's certainly a 24-hour, 24/7 global technology that never stops and everywhere all over the world. Everything seems to be framed within, still we can't get away sometimes from these kind of local perspectives. So, talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, about that sort of structure. I like what you're saying about Singapore. They each play these different roles. I mean, how does this thing going to evolve? If each of these different regions plays these different roles, how do you see this international ecosystem evolving over time?
Well, I think the first thing I want to mention, and Lorne, I'll let you go right after me, is most of this book was actually written in Manila, and I would go visit Lorne. I visited him twice, and I think, man, I must have spent 6 weeks in Manila total in 2019 working. We wanted to work hand in hand in person, sort of because we could challenge each other every day to get up and say, hey, we got to go right. And because Lorne's an engineer, he's sort of he's more of a late night person, and I'm an early riser. So I'd get up, I'd go to the coffee shop and hack at it. And around lunchtime, he'd get up and I'd be like, this is what I did today. Like, check this out. And then he'd go to he had a WeWork at the time, and he'd go work there. And one of the things that I had never been to Manila before. I've spent extensive time in Asia. I lived in mainland China for almost 2 years when I was much younger. But I'd never been to Manila, and the way that people interact with finance there is just very different than what you see in the United States or even, I mean, I would even say even mainland China, where they have all these really sophisticated payment systems. Maybe Lorne, you could talk a little bit more about, we went to a 7-Eleven and he showed me how people pay their bills, and that global impact. So most of it was written in Manila. I spent some time writing it in Puerto Rico, and then there was some time spent in the United States, of course, working on it. But we did try to put some global spin on it. There is some stuff about friendly jurisdictions, regulatory wise, in the book, and some of it is kind of U.S. focused, I would say, unfortunately. But we did try to have a global scope.
It reads like a very universally acceptable book, so it doesn't feel in that way it is one of those things. Lorne, tell a bit more about Manila. I mean, this idea of different places' experiences with money is different everywhere, and so in some respects, I suppose Bitcoin and blockchain technology means different things to different people.
Right. I came here in 2015 to set up a remittance startup. And that on its own was a huge education. I was using Bitcoin to help people move money from North America into the Philippines. And you can read about it, you can see news articles or stuff about it, but until you actually come here and experience it, and you see the way the culture, it's very much, you have to see how the culture deals with money. We constantly see there's a constant trend of money becoming more digital. That's, people here still use cash, and to them, cash is normal. And it's not like because there's a lack of technology, or it's more there's culture, there's corruption as well. That's actually something you learn about when you come to developing countries. And a lot of the narratives we hear about are from people that have never lived in a developing country before. But in developing countries, corruption is part of the world you live in. it's maybe taboo to talk about it, but it's there, it's real, and it affects decisions that everybody, no matter where you are in the social class, everyone deals with. And that sort of stuff, you can't really write about unless you've experienced it. So there's that. There's also just, like 25% of the population here lives below the poverty line. So, there's a lot of the world here is very, it's a poor country. And how does that situation, work with Bitcoin? And a lot of the narrative we've heard over the years has been, oh, cryptocurrency would be much better to help developing countries and the poor people around the world, the unbanked. It's one thing to write about it, but another thing to like see it and interact daily with the people that are unbanked.
Right, and that of course feeds into a lot of the debates that sort of progress through the time that you guys have, and you certainly talk about contentious hard forks, and the big one, of course, for Bitcoin was the block size debate, which revolved around some of the things you're talking about, and how do you make Bitcoin, something that is usable in these places that have a lower income, and what is the best route to that, right? So rather than go into that, let's explore a little bit more about the book, though, because that's what we're here to talk about. One of the things about a book, of course, is that like it's a long lead time, and you work on something, as fast as you write, you still can't get it moving out the door quick enough, because the publication process and the printing process and then the marketing process, it drags on and on and on. But you guys are writing about, the fastest moving technology in the world. I mean, it was when I was writing, I wrote books about this. I was always terrified about how what was going to come out was going to be behind the times. What did you guys, first of all, how did you deal with that? What was your strategy for sort of making sure that it was evergreen? And just give us maybe an indication of how fast things were moving relative to your book.
Yeah, I mean, let me just take that quickly, and Lorne, I see you smiling, so I'll let you add to it. Quite honestly, the biggest emotion was terror, because is just like, how are we going to do this? And we told O'Reilly, right? And very quickly, I do want to just give a shout out to Michelle Smith, who was the one who approved this. Nicole Tash and Corbin Collins, who are our copy editors, Rachel Head, who did the second copy edit. All of these folks, we kept saying, well, we're just like, things are just going to change, and we don't know what it's all going to look like. And this book was actually supposed to come out in the summer, and then we had coronavirus happen, and then we had the summer of DeFi. And I'm actually glad that we waited until this time to put it out, because look, I report on the markets, and price is a big factor in interest, and there's just a lot more interest than there would have been if we released this in the summer. Now, I was very careful. We were both very careful, I should say, I think that was like our biggest concern, was how do we make this so it's not instantly out of date? Okay, because like we write about Uniswap version 1, Uniswap version 3, I think is like around the bend. We write about Facebook in the other blockchain chapter. It was Libra, then it was Novi, now it is Diem. Diem did not make the book because Novi was what was there, and it was supposed to launch in 2020, so that's in the book. I guess we'll have another edition at some point in a couple of years, and we really tried not to make it too topical. And I think there's like some things that we can do around the book to make it more topical, but for a print edition, for me at least, that was the thing that gave me the most heart palpitations, particularly over the summer when O'Reilly wanted to release it, obviously, and right. I was just like, I think I had this feeling it just wasn't the right time, and that's when DeFi blew up, and we'd been waiting for this to happen since like 2016. And it finally did take off, and it hit Ethereum's capacity as expected, and sort of waned. And there's still scaling issues out there, and we try to address that in the future chapter. Yeah,
it's back again, and Yearn has just had however many mergers in the space of a few weeks. So it is an incredibly fast-moving space. It's also really complicated. I mean, it's one of the exciting things about DeFi to me is we were talking about be your own bank. It's almost like spin up your own bank and then spin up your own credit default swap system on top of that, and then build an insurance outfit, and you can be that thing, right? This idea that there's these composable protocols and everything else, that's exciting and out there, but to the average person, it's just fundamentally confusing. How did you guys deal with something like that? I mean, every bit of this book obviously is dealing with something to the newbie that's complicated, but I feel like DeFi is really complicated. So did you have a mindset in place for dealing with this and other complicated processes? How did you, starting from basics, walk this through?
Like, the thing that's timeless are the lessons that are learned. The way we see it is all these different projects, they're all experiments, and there's a lesson that's learned from each of these experiments. So rather than, writing tutorials and writing out source code of like how it works, we took it the other way, which was, okay, they did this experiment. What was learned? And that's sort of the progression of the industry. And then people can build upon that. And that's really what's most valuable.
Yeah, it's a great way to frame it, because it's ultimately what every single project is a live experiment that then gets iterated upon, right? I mean,
right. And they're all just building on each other,
right? Yeah, I mean, I've always loved Andreas Antonopoulos' description of Bitcoin as a sewer rat, because it's constantly being tested and experimented and thrown at the whole time, and it survives. It survives the worst of everything, and that's what actually makes it wonderful, because it's being battle tested in live time. But it's the same for all these different projects. But the thing is, I think the average person doesn't necessarily think like that, right? They talk about systems as if these systems are fully baked and perfect at the time that they work, that companies and products are just supposed to do what they do. They don't think of technology as a constantly evolving thing.
Well, we would relate it to the real world. So like, what is learned? What's the outcome? And how does that affect some specific use case? So for example, the flash loans, flash loans solves a huge problem for access to liquidity. If you want to be able to do arbitraging, before flash loans, you'd have to have millions of dollars sitting in different bank accounts. But if you use a flash loan, I don't need millions of dollars. I can just instantly access a pool of funds. So that was a key thing there. And actually, Daniel and I, for every interview, we'd always end every single interview with the same question. What is the best use case you've seen, and what is the worst use case you've seen? Because we want to bring it down to people's levels of how does it affect you? How will it affect each person?
Well, also the flash loan is a good one, because it's like, carry on, Dan. Sorry, carry on.
Well, go ahead and ask your question. I'm just going to wrap things up once you ask it, though.
Yeah, let's just have this last one. I think it's actually probably a good one to end up on, and that is like, the flash loan example, because yes, great use case, but also loads of propensity to do some real harm, right? I mean, we saw flash crashes, all sorts of things come out of that technology, and so all of this technology, all of this experimentation comes with great risk. What did you guys do to work into the book that level of warning and the need to sort of really be very, very careful with this stuff?
I'll let you take that, Lorne, and then we'll wrap.
Cool. So say the question again, please.
Well, just because of security risks, hacks, the custody of your keys. I mean, there's all these dangers, risks associated with this very technology, and like, how much did that feed into the way you approached the book and the lessons you were giving?
We just want to bring it down to a level that, as professionals every day, how does it affect us? How does it affect everyone in the industry? So we would just show both sides, the pros and cons. And the risks is a huge part of it. We actually, one unique chapter that we have in the book is called Catch Me If You Can, where, nobody really talks about this. Nobody wrote about it, but there's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of nefarious activities that take place in the industry. You might see it on like a CNBC documentary, but did you actually know what really goes on in the background? So that's how we brought it down to, the real world's like what's really going on, talking to the people in the industry.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a couple of things just to add to Lorne. I wanted you to go first, but a couple of things come to mind. Number one, in the markets chapter, we warn people you could lose all your money doing any of what is in this chapter, particularly on the derivative side of things. Another thing that we talk about is not your keys, not your coins, which I think is something that people need to understand. And then finally, I think that one of the things that we also talk about, and actually editorially they wanted us to dial back on, was just like some of the stuff about Mt. Gox that happened. We really tried to spend a lot of time doing the research and putting together the references and all of that, and hopefully some of the cautionary tales that are in the book and some of the lessons explained show how dangerous this can be if you're not really careful. We are like totally out of time, and so I've got to wrap this up. There are a couple of things that I do want to say. We do have a VR after party. I believe that the RSVPs are already full, which is fantastic. We are going to be asking folks about their worst blockchain use case ideas in alt space for a book giveaway. We also are going to eat our own dog food a little bit, and we are going to be using the Ethereum network to issue some NFTs. These NFTs are part of the book, and I can't show you, I guess, oh wait, maybe I can. Can I change my background? Yes, I can. So we have an artist. Our first artist is going to be, his name is Tom. He runs a studio called Puzzer.studio. That's his website. And he has graciously done this design of the Mastering Blockchain cover. So in the book, at the very end, we say we're gonna try to do something on the blockchain. And so what we're gonna do is 50 NFTs from graphics from the book, whether it's the cover or there's a bunch of graphics inside. We're gonna work with artists to do these NFTs. We're looking for artists. We have some already that are lined up, but over the course of 2021, in promotion of the book, we're gonna do these special NFTs. And that is pretty much it. I look forward to meeting some folks in VR tonight. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. And Michael and Lorne, thank you so much for doing this fireside chat with me.
Fantastic, guys. Lorne, Daniel, congratulations on the book. Excited for you. I can't make it to the VR event. I wish I could, but just gotta catch up with the family. But fantastic stuff. Enjoy it, and all the best to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.